With Vasseur in command, Ferrari arrives mid-season 2025 with a balance sheet that calling negative is an understatement. Second in the World Championship, yes, but with a gap too large from McLaren, who practically closed the championship in 12 races. But what should we expect from Spa with the new rear suspension? What is changing within Ferrari? Before we dive into the video details, please show your support by giving it a like. The performance of the English weekend was an illusion. Until Q3, the SF25 seemed capable of fighting for the pole, then reality. Third row for Ferrari in a colorful race. Maranello still chases an unrealized potential. The SF25 project was supposed to be the one of redemption. Instead, it has become a desperate race against time in the hope of snatching some consolation victory. The real issue is that 2026 is fast approaching. Aerodynamics, power unit, fuels, chassis and tires developed on the SF25 will not be transferable to the project. 678. Yet Vasseur continues to invest resources in the present. Next week, Ferrari will carry out a new filming day at Mugello. But the real news is the test of Ferrari's new push-rod suspension, which could already debut at Spa. This final card is an attempt to salvage the second half of the season, but there's also a political issue behind the choice. Vasseur is playing for his position as his contract expires at the end of 2025, and with a revolutionary 2026 on the horizon, the uncertainty about his future is dangerous not only for him, but for the entire structure of sports management. If the leader is at risk, the entire system becomes destabilized. Benedetto Vigna's words at Silverstone, calling it premature to talk about Vasseur's future, show a serious disconnect with the reality of modern Formula One. This isn't about managing a highway program. This is about racing against teams that live Formula One from the inside. In Maranello, there's a risk of repeating a previously seen mistake of changing the team principle just to have a lightning rod to show to the fans without addressing the real problems. Instead, Vasseur should be confirmed at least for the first year of the new cycle. Not out of affection, but to understand if this 2025 was just a simple blip or the symptom of something deeper. Supporting Vasseur is also the same Toto Wolff, for example, who would want him in Mercedes if he didn't work for Ferrari. Meanwhile, the team is pushing to recover the unrecoverable with the S25. This is also a message to the management: we are alive, we know how to react, let us work. If the top management trusts, Vasseur will still be in charge of the project in 2026. Otherwise, go ahead with the umpteenth reset. And this is crucial because Vasseur is fighting for his position at Ferrari as his contract ends in 2025. And that's why it's in his interest to try to improve the SF25 in the second half of the season. Not so much to reach McLaren, which is now far away in the constructors' 460 points of McLaren against the 222 points of Ferrari, but more to show that he can support the team and that despite the project started off badly at the beginning of the season, he has the cards on the table to try to turn the situation around and with hard work try to steer the team in the right direction. That is what is expected from a team principal to maintain that internal stability of the team. And that's why Ferrari looks at Spa as the last chance to shift gears. In fact, the new rear suspension will debut before Spa. We will see it as early as next Tuesday at the filming day at Mugello. Together with the updated bottom, the goal is only one: to regain stability at the rear and expand the window to the use of tires. It's a concept inspired by Mercedes, with the upper triangle tilted forward to improve transience and braking. It's not an extreme copy because Ferrari had to adapt everything to the carbon gearbox of the SF25 without risking reliability. Leclerc and Giovinazzi will conduct the test, not Hamilton, who is clearly already focusing on 2026. Mugello, with its curves of every kind, is the perfect test bench to verify if the simulator data also holds up on the track. According to the simulations, the new rear axle combined with the bottom should be worth a tenth per lap. In qualifying, it can make a difference. In the race, it can help to find more consistency, especially in tire management. The new suspension will be used at Spa, following the bottom's debut in Austria and Silverstone. We'll see if this package can really save a shaky season. As previously mentioned, the 2026 single-seaters will be completely revolutionized. But certain mechanical solutions and certain setup ideas remain useful even for the future. So some mechanical solutions can be reused, although most components will be brand new in 2026, including the power unit, aerodynamics, fuel, tires, and chassis. Ferrari is trying to close the ground effect cost cycle with dignity. And maybe, if Norris and Piastri start warring at McLaren, who knows, there's still a chance for a coup. Some victories may come during the season, but watch out for an interesting backstory about Hamilton and Leclerc on the SF25. Let's go see it together. According to Frederick Vasseur, Silverstone's was the best weekend of the year for Ferrari in terms of performance. Better than Monaco, but unfortunately not reflected in the results. Hamilton finishes 4th, Leclerc even 14th, and in qualifying both SF25s don't get past the 3rd row. Despite the difficulties, Hamilton remains upbeat with fans. After the race, he stated, "I find myself with a car that I have not developed in any way. Even days like this are useful for learning." Then comes the important backstory. In the post-race meeting, he and Leclerc took stock and in his own words, "We have precisely identified what the problem is." He doesn't go into technical details but implies that some parts of the SF25 work and others don't and need to be changed. Hamilton's actions signal a major ongoing restructuring effort, conveying a clear message about the future. The aim is to restore the team to our deserved level. We aspire to compete with McLaren by 2026. Translated, the SF25 is not Hamilton's car. He is still learning to know it. But the diagnosis of the problem is done. Now it's up to the technicians to react, because it's not enough to understand where the mistake is. You also need the time and resources to really correct the course. And while Ferrari has precisely identified the problem with the SF25 to avoid in 2026, Hamilton has clearly stated he wants to avoid a car that is unstable at the rear and gives him more confidence in fast corners. This SF25 is too nervous for him, even though it maintains a certain stability at the front, which is what Leclerc wants. But let's look instead from the other side, from where Hamilton comes, that is from Mercedes, how they are developing their single-seater. It was supposed to be the weekend of redemption after the disaster in Austria. Instead, Mercedes sinks even further at Silverstone. Russell brings home just 1 point. Antonelli retires. It's the second consecutive Grand Prix where the team appears to have lost their understanding of the V16. Spielberg's extreme experiment failed. Silverstone faces the same issue. The main problem is a car that becomes unmanageable when the temperature rises. They're aware and trying to fix it, but track results aren't improving. Strategic choices are exacerbating the problem. The race went wrong already in the formation lap when Russell was sent on track with slick tires. A risky choice like that of Leclerc, risky but totally out of time. The asphalt was not ready and George immediately found himself chasing. He drove well, made up a bit in the first 2 stints, but when he tried the undercut on Gasly by mounting the slicks again, the track was still too wet. The result is that he lost ground, even did a tail test at Beckett's and only saved himself with a 10th place. Antonelli's same strategy and same disaster. He mounted the slicks too early, then there was the accident with Aguiar, not his fault, which destroyed his diffuser. That's why the race ended. He had no chance to try. The V16's inconsistent performance is truly concerning. It can be either impressive or utterly disappointing. That's what they're working on now. Brackley, stability and consistency. New updates are expected for Spa, but for now, nothing concrete is known. Wolff is under pressure, inside and out. Russell's contract is still pending, and there's still the Verstappen file, who has received a proposal and is considering it. 2 wasted weekends don't help, but beware, Mercedes is not out of the running. It's not the first time it sinks and then reacts strongly. We remember 2023. At Spa, it was about to give him a double. Russell was then disqualified, but the car was flying there. The question is, will they be able to replicate that level in time for Belgium? Because if things go wrong at Spa 2, then yes, 2025 could become a nightmare for Mercedes. And on Verstappen's negotiation with Mercedes, Helmut Marko confirms. In fact, the future of IMAX is once again under discussion, and this time it's not just a paddock rumor. After months of denied rumors, partial awkward silences, now comes the confirmation from Edmund. There could be a dialogue between Verstappen and Toto Wolff. No concrete development, he says, but the door is not closed. The only question is, where will Verstappen race in 2026? Stone Martin has backed out. The only credible alternative to Red Bull today is Mercedes, which coincidentally has both seats available for the next season. Toto Wolff has never hidden that Max is his absolute priority. Verstappen's contract with Red Bull runs until 2028, but it's now evident that there are active exit clauses in place. Helmut Marko says no, but the word around the paddock is that Verstappen could free himself if he's not in the top 3 by the end of the summer break. Today, he's still third with an 18-point lead over Russell. However, another withdrawal or poor performance could change the scenario. Max, once calm and dominant, now appears unsettled. He doubts the RB21 as McLaren dominates the championship. The Red Bull Powertrains project for 2026 offers no guarantees, with no title in sight and an engine to be built from scratch. Enough to even shake a bulletproof contract. Helmut Marko stated that the title fight is between Norris and Piastri, with his unspoken words carrying even greater significance. As I mentioned in a previous video, no one can guarantee that Verstappen will remain with Red Bull in 2026, in my opinion. Verstappen will choose to go to Mercedes, obviously if he can satisfy the exit clause, and therefore he will find himself out of the top 3. Before the summer break, however, there is definitely a negotiation between Toto Wolff and Max Verstappen. We know that Red Bull won't be as competitive from next year because they will have to rebuild an engine from scratch, and it doesn't have a historically significant motor department like Mercedes has in Brackley. Here, since Verstappen is more interested in going to Mercedes than staying in Red Bull to ensure his chances of fighting for the World Championship. He aims to be the top driver with the best car. However, we must also discuss Ben Sulayem's choice to bring in V8 engines. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile Président is stirring up the paddock once more with a proposal that seems to come from another era, bringing back V8 engines in Formula 1. He clearly stated this at Silverstone during the British Grand Prix weekend, affirming that the V8 is a reality. Teams are realizing that the correct approach demands simplicity, reduced expenses, and decreased weight, and it needs to be done quickly. Timeline goal 2029. 3 years of work to write a new technical regulation and overturn everything once again. But a real proposal, or just election campaigning ahead of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile presidential elections, where Ben Sulayem will have to face off against former steward Tim Meyer? Hard to say. However, the president emphasizes that despite its green evolution, the hybrid is not a long-term sustainable solution. At least according to him. Ben Sulayem was clear. The current engines are too complicated, development reaches $200 million, and each power unit costs between 1.8 and 2.1 million. V8s are already produced by many manufacturers. Commercially, it would make sense. The return of the V8s would also bring less weight, simpler transmissions, and not a trivial detail, a sound that drives fans crazy, the emotional factor that is missing today. And then there's also the grid issue with a possible 12th team. Ben Sulayem doesn't close the door but tones down after tensions with the teams. On the Cadillac case, we don't want to impose anything. A new team must bring value to the Formula 1 business. We don't do it to anger the stables of Pommertabitsukoi. There's room for another team, but only if it brings money, sponsors, and spectacle. Avoid open conflict with long-time grid residents. Audi and Cadillac are coming, with the revolution of 2026 already set. But it's happening now. BENZULAYEM relaunches, reverting to V8 engines, prioritizing emotions and spectacle over technology after the hybrid era. Do you think this project by Ben Sulayem for 2029 to bring back the V8 engine is good or not? Are you in favor of this choice? From my point of view, am extremely happy if this situation were to occur. Sure, the V10 engines are the ones that have excited us the most, but it's also true that commercially the V8 is an engine that is still being made by many manufacturers. It would make a lot of sense to develop it with a Formula 1 perspective, to try to maximize it to the fullest, and therefore have less complicated engines to manage within a single season. To develop with simpler transmissions, but at the same time excite the audience. Let me know your opinion on all the topics we covered in the video. As always, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with my videos. At Rastanudo, we cover daily news about Formula 1 and Ferrari. See you in the next video.